You're tired, aren't you? Not just the ordinary tired that comes from a long day, but that deeper exhaustion, the kind that settles into your bones, the weariness that comes from trying so hard, for so long, to get everything exactly right, to be exactly right, to never make a mistake, to never fall short, to never be less than perfect. And here you are, lying in the darkness, and even now, even in this moment that's supposed to be for rest, you're probably wondering if you're doing this correctly, if you're relaxing the right way, if you're breathing properly, if you're even tired enough to deserve to sleep. I see you. I see how hard you've been trying. I see the invisible weight you carry, the constant vigilance, the endless self-monitoring, the exhausting work of trying to be flawless in a world that demands it while simultaneously making it impossible. And I want you to know something right now, before we go any further. You don't have to be perfect here. Not tonight. Not in this space. Not with me. You can be exactly as you are, tired and flawed and struggling and human. And that's not just okay. That's welcome. That's exactly right. Before we begin this journey together, just a quick moment. Write in the comments which part of this world you're listening from right now, and what time it is where you are. I'm curious. Are you listening in the quiet of late night, when the world sleeps, but your mind won't let you? Or perhaps in the early morning hours, after lying awake reviewing everything you did wrong today? Just leave a word or two. Your city, your time, whatever feels comfortable, and then settle in. Because this time right now, is entirely yours. And there are no standards to meet here, no grades to earn, no performance to deliver, just being. Now, let's create a space for you. Wherever you are right now, whatever position feels comfortable to your body, allow yourself to settle there. You don't need to lie in the perfect position. You don't need to arrange yourself in any particular way. Just be where you are, however you are. If you'd like to close your eyes, you can. If keeping them open feels better, that's fine too. There's no right way to do this. There's only your way, and your way is enough. Take a breath, just a natural breath. Nothing special, nothing controlled, nothing perfect. Just air moving in and out of your body the way it's been doing since the moment you were born. And as you breathe out, let your shoulders drop. Just a little. Just enough. They've been holding so much tension, carrying the weight of all those standards, all those expectations, all those ways you're supposed to be. You can let them rest now. Even if just for this hour. Even if just for this moment. Let's move through your body gently, with no judgment, no critique, no assessment of whether you're doing this correctly. Your face. Notice if your jaw is clenched. So many perfectionists hold tension there, grinding teeth through worry, tightening against the possibility of saying something wrong. Let it soften. Let your tongue rest easy in your mouth. Let your forehead smooth. You don't have to hold yourself together so tightly here. Your neck and shoulders. These faithful servants that carry the weight of perfection like Atlas carrying the world. Breathe into them. And as you breathe out, imagine them releasing just a degree, just enough to feel a difference. Your chest, your heart space, where so much fear lives. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. It's okay. Your heart can beat at whatever pace it needs to. It doesn't have to be calm or slow or perfect. It just has to be yours. Your arms, your hands, how many times have they worked and reworked something until it was just right? How many times have they erased and redone and adjusted and perfected? They can rest now. Let them lie wherever they are, heavy, still, released from the need to fix or improve or perfect anything. Your belly, your back, your hips, all the places where we store the tension of trying. Breathe into them. Let them be exactly as they are, not flatter or stronger or different, just as they are, which is enough. Your legs, your feet, they've carried you through so many days of striving. Let them be heavy now. Let them sink into whatever surface holds them. There's nowhere to go, nothing to achieve, nothing to earn, just resting, just being, just enough. This time is sacred, not because you've done something to deserve it, but because you're here, because you're alive, because you're a human being who needs rest, not a human doing who has to earn it. For the next while, you are released from the burden of perfection. You are released from the need to monitor yourself. You are released from the pressure to get this right. There is no right. There is only this moment, and you in it, exactly as you are. You came here tonight because you're exhausted. Exhausted from trying to be perfect. Exhausted from the constant inner voice that critiques every move, every word, every choice. Exhausted from the fear that if you're not flawless, you're worthless. Exhausted from the belief that love and acceptance and belonging are conditional, that they must be earned through perfect performance, that any mistake could cost you everything. And I want you to know, I'm not going to tell you that feeling is wrong. I'm not going to dismiss the very real experiences that taught you perfection was necessary for survival. Maybe you grew up in an environment where mistakes were met with criticism or withdrawal of love. Maybe you learned early that being perfect was the only way to be safe, to be valued, to matter. Maybe you've carried that lesson so long it feels like truth, like the way things are, like the only way to be. But here's what I want you to consider. Just consider, not believe yet. Just hold as a possibility. That lesson, as powerful as it's been, as much as it's shaped your life, it's not the whole truth. It's a story you learned, a strategy you developed, a shield you built to protect yourself. And it worked. It got you this far. It kept you safe in environments where perfection felt like the price of admission. So we honor it. We thank it. We recognize it did its job, but you're not in that environment anymore. Not here. Not now. Not tonight. And the shield that once protected you, it's become a prison. The strategy that once kept you safe, it's now keeping you exhausted. The perfection that once earned you conditional love, it's now preventing you from experiencing the unconditional acceptance that doesn't require you to be flawless. It just requires you to be. Think about what perfection has cost you, not to make you feel bad, not to add another thing to criticize yourself about, but just to see clearly, to acknowledge. What has it cost you to never allow yourself to make mistakes, to never let anyone see you struggle, to never ask for help because that would reveal you don't know everything, to never try new things because you might not be immediately excellent at them? Maybe it's cost you relationships because real intimacy requires vulnerability. And vulnerability means showing the imperfect parts, the messy parts, the parts that aren't polished and presentable. Maybe it's cost you joy, because joy is spontaneous and uncontrolled and imperfect by nature. Maybe it's cost you creativity, because creation is messy. It requires experimentation and failure and learning through mistakes. Maybe it's cost you rest, because if rest must be earned through perfect performance, and perfect performance is impossible, then rest never comes. And maybe, just maybe, it's cost you yourself, the real you, the one beneath the perfect performance, the one who has quirks and flaws and strange thoughts and imperfect preferences, the one who's messy and complicated and beautifully, wonderfully human. That person, the real you, has been hidden away for so long, locked behind the mask of perfection, silenced by the belief that being real means being unacceptable. But that person is still there, still alive, still waiting for permission to exist, waiting for the moment when it's finally safe to be imperfect. And I'm here to tell you, this is that moment, right now, in this space, with me. You have permission. Permission to be flawed, permission to be tired, permission to be struggling, permission to not have it all together, permission to be exactly as human as you actually are. I know that's scary. I know the voice in your head is probably arguing right now, telling you that if you stop being perfect, everything will fall apart, that people will reject you, that you'll fail, that you'll lose everything you've worked so hard to build and maintain. That voice is loud. It's convincing. It's been with you a long time. But it's also just a voice. It's not reality. It's fear. And fear always sounds like certainty. But it's not. The truth is, most of what you're afraid will happen if you're imperfect. It won't. People won't abandon you. The world won't collapse. You won't suddenly become worthless. What will actually happen is, you'll become free. Free from the exhausting work of maintaining an impossible standard. Free to make mistakes and learn from them. Free to be seen as you actually are and discover that you're lovable even in your imperfection. Maybe especially in your imperfection. Because here's something your perfectionism doesn't want you to know. Perfection is not lovable. It's admirable, maybe. Impressive, certainly. But lovable? No. Because love requires connection. And connection requires vulnerability. And vulnerability requires imperfection. When you're perfect, people can admire you from a distance. But they can't get close. They can't relate. They can't see themselves in you. And so they can't truly love you. They can only love the performance. And deep down, you know this. That's part of why you're so tired. Because even when you achieve perfection, even when you get it exactly right, it doesn't feel like enough. Because the love you receive feels conditional, feels fragile, feels like it could disappear the moment you slip. But when you're imperfect, when you're real, when you're human, that's when true connection becomes possible. That's when people can actually see you, can relate to you, can love the real you, not the performance. And that love, that's the love that sustains. That's the love that doesn't disappear when you make a mistake. That's the love you've been longing for all along. So tonight, just for tonight, what if you let the perfection go? Not forever, not in every area of your life, just here, just now, just for this hour. What if you allowed yourself to rest without having earned it? To be messy without fixing it? To be imperfect without apologizing for it? What if you gave yourself permission to simply be exactly as you are and discover that it's enough, that you're enough, not because you've done everything right, but because you're here, because you're human, because you're you. This is what we're going to explore together. Not how to become more perfect, but how to release the need for perfection altogether. How to find peace in your imperfection. How to rest in your humanness. How to sleep without first having to earn it through flawless performance. And I'm going to walk beside you, gently, without judgment, without standards, just presence, just companionship, just acceptance. You're already doing beautifully, just by being here, just by admitting you're tired, just by reaching for something different. That takes courage, real courage. And I see it. I see you. Not the perfect version you think you should be, but the real version you actually are. And that version, tired and flawed and trying so hard, that version is absolutely worthy of rest, of peace, of sleep, of love, of everything. Breathe and let yourself begin to release. We have this whole night ahead of us, and there's nothing you need to do, nothing you need to prove, nothing you need to perfect. Just be here. Just rest. Just allow yourself to be held by this moment exactly as you are, which is perfect in its imperfection, which is exactly enough. Your breathing has softened now. I can sense it. The tight grip you had on everything when we began, it's loosening. Not because you fixed anything or achieved anything or done this perfectly, but because you're allowing yourself to simply be here. And that's exactly what we need. Because now, we're going to look at something together. Something you've been carrying for so long, you might not even remember picking it up. We're going to look at where this need for perfection came from, not to blame anyone, not to create a story of victimhood, but to understand. Because when you understand the origins of something, when you see how it was born, you can finally begin to release it. Close your eyes if you haven't already, and let your mind drift back, gently. No force, no effort. Just let it wander back through time, like following a thread, back to when you were younger, maybe much younger, maybe just a few years ago, to a time when perfection wasn't yet your master, to a time before the constant vigilance, before the exhausting self-monitoring. There was a moment, or maybe a series of moments, when you learned that being perfect was important, that it was necessary, that it was the price of something you needed desperately. Love, maybe. Safety. Acceptance. Belonging. Maybe it was a parent, not a monster. Not necessarily. Maybe just someone who had their own pain, their own wounds, their own impossibly high standards they couldn't meet, and so they passed them on to you like an inheritance. Maybe they praised you when you got straight A's, but went silent when you brought home a B. Maybe they smiled when you won, but looked disappointed when you came in second. Maybe they told you they loved you, but somehow that love felt contingent, conditional, like it was there when you performed well and withdrew when you didn't. Or maybe it wasn't that obvious. Maybe it was subtler. Maybe they never said anything directly critical, but you could feel it. The slight stiffening when you made a mistake. The way they'd correct you, not harshly, but constantly. The way they'd redo things you'd done because it wasn't quite right. The way they'd compare you to other children, not meanly, but in that casual way that planted seeds of not enoughness that grew into forests of perfectionism. Or maybe it wasn't a parent at all. Maybe it was a teacher who had favorites, and you learned that being perfect was how you became one. Maybe it was a coach who who only valued winning. Maybe it was a sibling who seemed to do everything right, and you were always in their shadow, trying to measure up. Maybe it was a group of friends who had impossible standards, and you learned that fitting in required flawlessness. Maybe it was a romantic partner who criticized every little thing until you learned to criticize yourself before they could. Or maybe it was something else entirely. Maybe you grew up in chaos, in instability, in unpredictability, and you learned that if you could just be perfect enough, if you could just control yourself completely, if you could just never make mistakes, then maybe you could control the chaos around you. Maybe you could prevent the bad things. Maybe you could keep your family together, or your parents sober, or the fighting from starting. Perfection became your magic spell, your protection, your way of trying to create safety in an unsafe world. Whatever it was, whoever it was, however it happened, one thing is clear. You didn't choose this. You didn't wake up one day and decide to become a perfectionist for fun. You learned it. You developed it as a response to your environment, as a survival strategy, as a way to get something you needed or avoid something you feared. And it made sense. Given what you were experiencing, given what you needed, given the tools you had available as a young person, perfectionism was actually brilliant. It was adaptive. It was the best solution you could find to a real problem. So let's honor that for a moment. Let's acknowledge the wisdom in that young version of you who figured out that being perfect could earn love, or create safety, or prevent pain. That person was doing the best they could with what they had. They weren't wrong. They weren't broken. They were surviving. And that survival strategy worked. It got you through. It brought you here, to this moment, still alive, still functioning, still trying. That's remarkable. You're remarkable, even if you can't see it yet. But here's what happens with childhood survival strategies. They don't automatically update when we grow up. They don't recognize when the environment has changed. That young part of you that learned perfection was necessary. It's still operating on old information, still believing the old rules apply, still convinced that any mistake will result in the loss of love or safety or belonging. Even though the circumstances are different now, even though you're no longer in that original situation, even though the people around you now might not require perfection at all. That's why perfectionism feels so automatic, so involuntary, so impossible to just stop. Because it's not a choice you're making consciously. It's a program that's running in the background, installed long ago, never updated, still executing the same commands based on data from a different time. And you can't just delete a program like that through willpower. You can't just decide to stop being a perfectionist and have it work. Believe me, you've tried. If willpower could fix this, you'd be fixed by now. What you can do, what we're doing right now, is bring awareness to it. See it clearly. Understand where it came from. Recognize it as a learned behavior, not an inherent flaw. Not who you are, but something you do, something you developed, something that made sense once, and maybe, just maybe, something you don't need anymore. Not because you're going to become careless or sloppy or mediocre, but because there are other ways to be. Ways that don't require you to be flawless to deserve love or safety or rest. Think about the difference between excellence and perfection. Excellence is doing something well, taking pride in your work, developing mastery, growing your skills, enjoying the process of improvement. Excellence is human. It's achievable. It's satisfying. It leaves room for mistakes as part of learning. It allows you to be both capable and imperfect at the same time. But perfection is something else entirely. Perfection is the enemy of excellence because it doesn't allow for the mistakes that learning requires. Perfection isn't about doing well. It's about never being wrong, never falling short, never being criticized, never being rejected. Perfection isn't actually about the work at all. It's about safety. It's about worthiness. It's about using flawless performance to prove you deserve to exist, to be loved, to take up space, to matter. And that's an impossible burden, because no amount of perfect performance can ever prove your worth. Your worth isn't something that needs to be proven. It's not something you earn through achievement. It's inherent. It's unconditional. It's there because you're alive, because you're human, because you exist. You had worth the day you were born, before you'd accomplished a single thing. And you'll have worth when you're old, even if you never accomplish another thing. Worth isn't about what you do. It's about what you are. But the environment that created your perfectionism, it taught you otherwise. It taught you that worth is conditional, that love is earned, that acceptance requires flawlessness. And so you internalized that lesson. You made it part of your identity. You became someone who believes at a deep level that they must be perfect to be acceptable. And every experience since then has been filtered through that lens. Every success confirms that perfection works. Every failure confirms that anything less is disaster. But what if that original lesson was wrong? What if the people who taught you that perfection was necessary? What if they were operating from their own wounds, their own perfectionism, their own fear of not being enough? What if their inability to love you unconditionally wasn't about you at all? What if it was about their limitations, their pain, their own unmet needs? Children are egocentric by nature. When something goes wrong, when they don't get the love they need, when they're criticized or neglected or held to impossible standards, they naturally assume it's about them. They think, I must not be good enough. I must need to be better. I must need to be perfect. They don't think, the adult in my life is struggling with their own issues, and that's affecting how they treat me. They can't think that way. They don't have that perspective yet. But you're not a child anymore. You have adult perspective now. You can look back and see things you couldn't see then. You can recognize that the people who shaped your perfectionism, they were human, flawed, limited, doing their best with their own wounds, and their inability to offer you unconditional acceptance. That wasn't a statement about your worth. It was a statement about their capacity, about what they had to give, about their own pain. Does that make it hurt less? Maybe not. The impact is still real. The wound is still there. But it does change the meaning. It shifts the story from I'm not good enough to I didn't get what I needed. And that's a crucial difference. One is about your identity. The other is about circumstance. One requires you to change who you are. The other just requires you to grieve what was missing and find other ways to get those needs met now. So let yourself feel that for a moment. The sadness of it, the unfairness of it, that you had to become perfect to try to earn what should have been freely given. That you had to work so hard for love that should have been unconditional. That you had to monitor yourself so carefully just to feel safe. You deserved better. You deserve to be loved exactly as you were, messy and learning and imperfect and growing. You deserved adults who could hold your mistakes with compassion, who could praise your efforts, not just your outcomes, who could make you feel safe without requiring you to be flawless. And you didn't get that. Not fully, not consistently, maybe not at all. And that's a real loss, a real wound. And it's okay to acknowledge that, to feel sad about it, to wish it had been different. That's not self-pity. That's truth. That's honoring what happened. That's allowing yourself to grieve what you needed but didn't receive. But here's the other truth. What happened then doesn't have to determine what happens now. The program that was installed can be recognized, examined, and gradually, so gradually, replaced with something else. Something that doesn't require you to be perfect. Something that allows you to be human, to make mistakes, to learn, to grow, to rest, to simply be. That's the journey we're on together. Not fixing you because you're not broken, but updating the old programming, challenging the old beliefs, creating new patterns, new ways of being, ways that honor the past without being imprisoned by it, ways that recognize perfection was a survival strategy you needed once, but don't need anymore. Not here, not now, not tonight. You're doing so well just listening to this, just being willing to look at where this came from. That takes courage, because it's easier to just keep running on the old programming. Easier to keep being perfect without questioning why. But you're here. You're questioning. You're exploring. And that means something in you knows there's another way. Something in you is ready to try something different. And that's something, that wise part, that's the part we're going to strengthen. That's the part that's going to lead you home to yourself. Rest now in this understanding. You didn't choose perfectionism. You learned it. And what was learned can be unlearned. Slowly, gently, with patience and compassion. You're not going to wake up tomorrow magically free of perfectionism, but you're going to wake up with awareness, with understanding, with the beginning of freedom. And that's more than enough for tonight. Breathe deeply. Let your body sink deeper and know that you're exactly where you need to be, learning what you need to learn at exactly the pace you need to learn it, which is perfect in its beautiful imperfection. Episode 3, The Stories Perfect Tells You. You're deeper now. I can feel it. Your body has released more tension. Your breath has found a slower rhythm. And your mind, that vigilant mind that usually monitors everything, it's starting to quiet. Good. This is exactly where we need to be. Because now we're going to listen to something you usually accept without question. We're going to listen to the voice. The one that's been with you so long, it sounds like truth. The one that promises safety through perfection. The one that keeps you striving and monitoring and correcting and never, ever resting. We're going to listen to that voice, and we're going to question it. That voice has a name. You might call it your inner critic, your perfectionist, your conscience. But whatever you call it, it's there, loud and constant, and absolutely convinced it's helping you. It speaks to you all day long, critiquing, correcting, warning, pushing. It comments on everything you do and say and think. It points out every flaw, every mistake, every way you could have done better. And it does this, it claims, for your own good. To keep you safe, to keep you striving, to keep you perfect. But let's listen more carefully to what it actually says. let's hear the messages beneath the messages. Because that voice, as familiar as it is, it's not your friend. It's not your protector. It's not even telling you the truth. It's telling you what fear sounds like when it's pretending to be wisdom. And once you hear it clearly, once you see what it's really saying, you can begin to question whether you want to keep believing it. The voice says, if you're not perfect, something terrible will happen. That's the core message, isn't it? Behind every criticism, every correction, every impossible standard, the belief that perfection is what stands between you and disaster. That if you let your guard down, if you make a mistake, if you're not constantly vigilant, everything will fall apart. You'll lose your job, your relationships, your reputation, your worth, everything you've built, everything you are. But is that true? Really true? Think about it. Think about the times you have made mistakes. Because you have, haven't you? No matter how hard you've tried to be perfect, you're human. You've missed deadlines, said the wrong thing, forgotten important details, made errors, failed at things. And what happened? Did everything fall apart? Did people abandon you en masse? Did you lose everything? Or did life continue? Did people forgive you or not even notice? Did you learn something? Did you survive? The voice would have you believe that every mistake is catastrophic. But your actual experience tells a different story. Most mistakes, most imperfections, most times you fell short of perfect. They weren't disasters. They were just moments, human moments, opportunities to learn or adjust or apologize or try again. The catastrophe the voice predicts almost never actually happens. And yet, the voice keeps warning you, keeps insisting, keeps making perfection feel like survival itself. That's because the voice isn't speaking from present reality. It's speaking from the past, from that original wound, from that original environment where maybe mistakes really did feel dangerous, where criticism was harsh, where love felt conditional, where perfection seemed like the only way to be safe. Back then, maybe the voice was right. Maybe perfection was protective. But now, in your current life, with the people around you now, the voice is operating on outdated information, fighting old battles, protecting you from threats that no longer exist. The voice also says, you're only valuable when you're performing perfectly. This one is insidious because it ties your entire worth to your output, to your achievements, to whether you meet impossible standards. It tells you that you are what you do, that your value is earned through flawless performance, that if you stop being perfect, if you rest, if you admit you don't know something or can't do something, you become worthless, disposable, undeserving of love or respect or even existence. But think about the people you love, the people who matter to you. Do you love them because they're perfect? Do you value them only when they perform flawlessly? Do you withdraw your affection when they make mistakes? Of course not. You love them because they're human, because they're real, because of who they are, not what they achieve. You love their quirks and flaws. You forgive their mistakes. You value them simply because they exist in your life. So why do you believe different rules apply to you? Why do you believe you must earn through perfection what you freely give to others? The voice has convinced you that you're the exception, that everyone else deserves unconditional worth, but you have to prove it. You have to achieve it. You have to maintain it through constant perfect performance or lose it entirely. That's not truth. That's trauma. That's the old wound speaking. That's the child who learned their worth was conditional believing that lesson still applies. The voice says, if you're not perfect, people will reject you. This is the fear beneath almost everything, isn't it? That if people see the real you, the messy, flawed, struggling you, they won't want you. They'll leave. They'll judge. They'll find someone better. Someone who has it all together. Someone who doesn't make mistakes. Someone perfect. And so you must maintain the mask. Must keep performing. Must never let anyone see the imperfect reality beneath the polished surface. But here's what that belief costs you. It costs you real connection. Because intimacy requires vulnerability. It requires letting people see you as you actually are. When you only show people your perfect performance, you're not actually letting them know you. You're showing them a version, a curated version, a version designed to be acceptable. And so even when they say they love you, even when they seem to accept you, part of you knows they don't really know you. And so the acceptance feels hollow. The love feels fragile. Because it's based on a performance, not a person. The truth is, the people worth having in your life, they don't want your perfection. They want your realness. They want to see you struggle and admit you don't know and make mistakes and be human. Because that's when they can relate to you. That's when they can feel close to you. That's when connection actually happens. Yes, some people might judge you for being imperfect. Some people might prefer the performance. But those people, they're not capable of real intimacy anyway. They're not the people you want close to you. The people you want, the real ones, they're waiting for you to drop the mask. They're waiting to meet the real you. The voice says, anything less than perfect is failure. This is perhaps the most damaging message of all, because it creates a binary. A world where there are only two options, perfection or worthlessness, success or failure, acceptable or unacceptable. There's no middle ground, no spectrum, no room for good enough, or mostly right, or pretty good, or solid effort. It's all or nothing, perfect or disaster. And since perfection is impossible, that means you're always failing, always falling short, always not quite enough. But reality doesn't work that way. Reality is all middle ground, all spectrum, all shades of gray. Most things are neither perfect nor terrible. They're somewhere in between. Good, but not great. Successful in some ways, and lacking in others. Adequate, sufficient, acceptable, perfectly, imperfect. And that's not just okay. That's human. That's real. That's where almost everything in life actually exists. Think about nature. Is a sunset perfect? Is there a perfect tree? A perfect flower? A perfect ocean? No. And yet they're beautiful. They're valuable. They fulfill their purpose. They don't need to be perfect to be worthy of existence. They just need to be. The flower with one petal damaged is still a flower. The tree bent by wind is still a tree. The sunset obscured by clouds is still beautiful. Perfection is not the standard in nature. Growth is. Change is. Being is. So why do you hold yourself to a standard that nothing else in nature meets? Why do you believe you must be perfect when nothing perfect actually exists? The voice has convinced you that you're different, that you're the exception, that while everything else can be beautifully imperfect, you must be flawlessly perfect. That's not wisdom. That's imprisonment. That's the voice keeping you trapped in an impossible pursuit. The voice also makes promises. It says, if you're perfect enough, you'll finally feel okay. It says, just one more achievement, just one more flawless performance, just one more validation, and then you'll feel secure. Then you'll feel worthy. Then you'll be able to rest. But it's lying. Because you've been perfect before, haven't you? You've achieved things. You've performed flawlessly. You've gotten the praise, the recognition, the validation. And did it make you feel permanently okay? Did it create lasting security? Did it allow you to finally rest? No. The feeling lasted a moment, maybe an hour, maybe a day, and then the voice was back, pointing out the next thing that needs to be perfect, the next standard to meet, the next mountain to climb. Perfection doesn't lead to peace. It leads to more perfection. It's an addiction that can never be satisfied. So what's the alternative? If you can't trust the voice, if its promises are false, if its warnings are exaggerated, if its standards are impossible, then what? Do you just give up? Become careless? Stop trying? No. That's what the voice would have you believe, that without it, you'll become nothing. But that's not true either. The alternative isn't carelessness. It's care without cruelty, excellence without perfectionism, effort without self-torture, growth without shame. The alternative is learning to question the voice, to hear it and respond differently. When it says that wasn't good enough, you can say, actually, it was adequate. It served its purpose. It was enough. When it says you're going to fail, you can say, maybe, and I'll survive that too. Failure isn't fatal. When it says you must be perfect, you can say, no, I must be human, and human includes imperfect. This isn't about silencing the voice completely. That's probably not possible. It's been with you too long. But you can change your relationship with it. You can stop accepting everything it says as truth. You can question it, challenge it, choose whether to believe it or not. The voice is just thoughts, and thoughts are not facts. They're just mental events. They arise, they pass, and you're the awareness that notices them. You don't have to obey them. You don't have to let them run your life. Tonight, as you lie here, can you hear the voice more clearly? Can you notice when it's speaking? Can you recognize its familiar patterns and predictions and promises? And can you, just for tonight, choose not to believe it? Choose to let it be there without letting it be in charge? Choose to rest even though the voice says you haven't earned it yet? That's freedom. Not the absence of the voice, but the choice to not be controlled by it anymore. You're so brave for questioning what you've believed for so long, for examining the voice instead of just obeying it. That's how change begins. Not with dramatic transformation, but with gentle questioning, with curiosity instead of certainty, with wondering if maybe, just maybe, there's another way to be. Rest now. Let the voice fade into the background like distant traffic. It can be there, but it doesn't have to drive. You're learning to steer your own way, and that way is toward kindness, toward self-compassion, toward the beautiful imperfection of simply being human. Breathe and let yourself drift deeper, beyond the voice, beyond the standards, into the quiet space where you're already, always enough. You're so relaxed now, your body heavy and warm, your mind drifting in that peaceful space between full awareness and the edges of sleep. This is exactly where healing happens. where truth can be spoken without your defenses rising up to protect you, where you can finally look at what you've been avoiding and what we need to look at now. What we need to acknowledge together is what all this striving has cost you, not to make you feel worse, not to pile more weight onto shoulders already carrying too much, but because grief is part of healing, and you can't grieve what you don't acknowledge. So let's be honest, let's be real. Let's look at what perfectionism has taken from you. It's taken your joy, hasn't it? Think about it. When was the last time you did something just for the pure pleasure of it? Just for fun? Without needing to be good at it, or improve at it, or master it? When was the last time you laughed freely without immediately wondering if you laughed too loud or looked silly? When was the last time you let yourself be playful, spontaneous, messy, without that voice critiquing and correcting and reminding you to be more controlled? Joy is imperfect by nature. It's uncontrolled. It's spontaneous. It bubbles up without permission and spills over without regard for whether it's appropriate or measured or just right. Joy doesn't care about standards. It doesn't ask if this is the perfect moment to feel happy. It just is. And perfectionism kills that, because perfectionism requires control. It requires constant monitoring. It requires you to always be aware of how you're coming across, what you're doing, whether you're meeting the standard. And you can't be joyful and self-conscious at the same time. You can't be spontaneous and constantly monitoring. So joy, real, uninhibited joy, it's been sacrificed at the altar of perfection. Maybe you remember what it felt like. Maybe there was a time before perfectionism took over, when you could just be, when you could play without worrying about winning, when you could create without worrying about the outcome, when you could try new things without the fear of not being immediately excellent. Maybe you remember that lightness, that freedom, that sense of just being alive and experiencing things without the constant weight of judgment. That's what you've lost. And it's worth grieving. Perfectionism has also cost you your creativity, because creativity requires mistakes. It requires experimentation. It requires trying things that might not work, creating 10 bad versions before you get to one good one, making messes, starting over, following impulses that lead nowhere. And perfectionism can't tolerate that. It wants the first draft to be perfect. It wants to know how something will turn out before beginning. It wants guarantees. And creativity doesn't offer guarantees. It offers possibility, mystery, the unknown. And so you've probably avoided creative pursuits. Or, if you've engaged with them, you've made them another thing to be perfect at, another area to achieve in, another way to prove your worth. And in doing that, you've lost the actual joy of creation, the play of it, the discovery of it. Think about all the things you haven't tried because you weren't sure you'd be good at them. The languages you didn't learn, the instruments you didn't pick up, the hobbies you didn't explore, the art you didn't make, the writing you didn't do, the dancing you didn't attempt. All the experiences you denied yourself because you might not have been immediately excellent. All the growth you missed because growth requires being bad at something before you get good at it. Perfectionism promised to keep you safe from failure. But what it actually did was keep you safe from living, from trying, from growing, from the full, messy, imperfect experience of being human. And it's cost you relationships, real, intimate, authentic relationships, because intimacy requires vulnerability. It requires letting people see you when you're struggling, when you're confused, when you don't have answers, when you're wrong, when you're messy, when you're human. But perfectionism won't allow that. It insists on the mask, on the performance, on showing people only the polished version. And so your relationships stay surface level. People know the perfect version of you, the together version, the successful version, but they don't know you, the real you, the one who's scared and tired and confused and trying to figure it all out, just like everyone else. Maybe you've had people tell you they can't get close to you, that you seem distant, that there's a wall, and you didn't understand why because you were trying so hard. But that's exactly the problem. The trying, the performing, the perfect presentation. It creates distance because people can sense when they're not seeing the real person. They can feel the wall even if they can't articulate what it is. And they pull back because connection requires two real people meeting each other. And if you're only showing the performance, there's nothing real to connect with. Think about the friendships that might have been deeper, the romantic relationships that might have lasted, the family connections that might have been closer. If only you could have let them see you struggle. Let them help you. Let them witness your imperfection and love you anyway. But you couldn't risk it because the voice said they'd reject you, they'd judge you, they'd leave. And so you kept the mask on, and they never got to meet you, and you never got to experience being truly known and loved anyway. Not despite your imperfection, but including it as part of the whole messy, beautiful reality of who you are. Perfectionism has cost you your health, the stress of constant vigilance. It takes a physical toll, the tension you carry in your body, the sleep you lose reviewing everything you did wrong today and planning how to be perfect tomorrow, the anxiety that hums constantly in your nervous system, the way your stomach ties in knots before any performance or evaluation, the headaches, the fatigue, the ways your body has been trying to tell you this is too much, but you've ignored it because rest is for people who've earned it and you never quite have. Your body has been trying to protect you, trying to force you to slow down, trying to create the rest you won't give yourself permission to take. But you've pushed through, ignored the signals, medicated the symptoms, kept going because stopping feels like failure, and failure is not an option. And your body, your poor, exhausted body, it's paying the price. It's holding all that stress, all that tension, all that constant activation. And someday, if you don't change, it's going to break down in ways you can't ignore. It's going to force the rest you won't choose freely. And perfectionism has cost you time. So much time. Time spent redoing things that were already good enough. Time spent worrying about things that didn't matter. Time spent preparing and planning and perfecting when you could have been living. Time spent paralyzed by the fear of not doing something perfectly, so you didn't do it at all. Time spent in your head critiquing yourself instead of being present in your life. All that time, gone, spent in service of an impossible standard that's never satisfied. Time you'll never get back. Think about what you could have done with all those hours, all those days, all those years, the experiences you could have had, the people you could have been with, the rest you could have enjoyed, the hobbies you could have explored, the growth you could have experienced, the peace you could have felt, all of it traded for the illusion that being perfect would finally make you feel okay. would finally make you safe, would finally make you enough. But perhaps the greatest cost of all, perfectionism has cost you yourself, the real you, the authentic you, the you that exists beneath all the striving and performing and perfect presentations. That person, they've been buried so deep under layers of should and must and have to that you might not even remember what they're like anymore, what they want, what they love, what brings them alive, what they would do if they weren't constantly trying to meet impossible standards. Who are you when you're not trying to be perfect? What do you actually enjoy when you're not worried about being good at it? What would you choose if you weren't afraid of choosing wrong? What would you say if you weren't monitoring every word? How would you dress if you weren't concerned about looking exactly right? What would you create if you didn't need it to be perfect? Who would you be if you could just be? You might not know anymore. And that's the tragedy. Not that you failed at perfection, but that in pursuing it, you've lost track of yourself. The real self. The imperfect, messy, beautiful, uniquely you self. That person is still in there, still alive, still waiting. But they've been silenced for so long. Told to wait until you're perfect enough to let them out. Told they're not acceptable as they are. Told they need to be different, better, more, less, other than what they naturally are. And meanwhile, life has been happening. Days turning into weeks, turning into months, turning into years. And you've been so busy trying to be perfect that you've missed it. Missed the ordinary moments, missed the imperfect joys, missed the connections available in messy reality, missed your own life because you were waiting for it to be perfect before you allowed yourself to fully live it. This is what needs to be grieved. Not just the specific things you've lost, but the way of being you've lost. The ease, the lightness, the freedom to just exist without constant evaluation. The ability to make mistakes and laugh about them. To be human without apologizing for it. To take up space without justifying it. To rest without earning it. To be yourself without perfecting it. And I know this hurts to acknowledge. I know looking at what perfection has cost feels almost unbearable. Because if you look too closely, you might get angry. Angry at the people who taught you this. Angry at yourself for believing it. Angry at all the time and joy and connection and peace you've lost. And anger feels dangerous, feels like another thing that needs to be controlled and perfected and managed. But anger is just grief turned outward. It's your heart saying, this wasn't right, this wasn't fair, I deserved better. And you did. You deserved better. You deserved to be loved without having to be perfect. You deserved to make mistakes and still be cherished. You deserved to rest without proving you'd earned it. You deserve to be human and have that be enough. And the fact that you didn't get that, the fact that you learned perfection was necessary, that's a wound, a real wound. And wounds need to be acknowledged before they can heal. So let yourself feel this. Let yourself grieve what perfection has taken. The joy and creativity and connection and rest and time and self. All of it. Let it hurt. Let it be sad. Let it be unfair. Because it is. It is unfair that you've been carrying this burden, that you've been trying so hard for so long, that you've sacrificed so much to meet a standard that was impossible from the start. But here's the other truth. What was lost can be found. Not all of it. You can't get back the time. But the joy, the creativity, the connection, the rest, yourself. Those things aren't gone forever. They're just buried, waiting. And as you begin to release the need for perfection, as you begin to allow yourself to be imperfect, space opens up. Space for all those things to return, to emerge, to be experienced again. That's what we're moving toward. Not just releasing perfection, but reclaiming what perfection took. Reclaiming your life, yourself, your humanity, your right to exist exactly as you are without apology or improvement or constant striving. You're on that path now. You're doing the work. And I'm so proud of you for being willing to look at this, for being willing to feel this, for being courageous enough to acknowledge what's been lost so you can begin to find it again. Rest now in this grief. Let it wash over you. Let it move through you. You don't have to fix it or resolve it or make it okay. Just feel it and know that feeling it is part of healing it. Breathe and trust that on the other side of this grief, there's something else waiting, something lighter, something freer, something more you than you've been in a very long time. Rest and let the healing continue, even in your sleep. You're halfway through this journey now, and I can feel how different you are from when we began. The tightness has left your body. The vigilance has softened in your mind. You're not trying so hard anymore, not monitoring, not perfecting, just being, just here. And that itself is a kind of miracle for someone who spent a lifetime believing that simply being isn't enough. But it is enough. You are enough. And tonight, in this episode, we're going to explore what might be the most radical idea you've ever considered. What if good enough is actually good? I know that phrase makes you uncomfortable. Good enough. It probably sounds like settling, like giving up, like lowering your standards to something mediocre and uninspired, like becoming lazy or careless or ordinary. That's what perfectionism has taught you to believe, that there are only two options, perfect or worthless, excellence or failure, outstanding or unacceptable, and anything in the middle, anything merely adequate, is shameful, is giving up, is not enough. But what if that's not true? What if there's a vast, beautiful space between perfect and worthless? What if that space is where almost all of life actually happens? What if good enough isn't settling, but sanity, not mediocrity, but wisdom, not giving up, but finally understanding what actually matters? Let's explore this together, gently, without pressure, just considering, just allowing the possibility to exist. Think about a meal, not a meal at a 5-star restaurant prepared by a master chef, just a meal, a simple dinner, nutritious, tasty enough, served warm, eaten with people you care about, or in peaceful solitude. Is that meal perfect? No. The seasoning might be slightly off. The vegetables might be a little overcooked. The presentation might be non-existent. But is it good? Is it adequate? Does it nourish your body? Does it satisfy your hunger? Does it allow you to continue living? Yes. Yes to all of that. It's good enough. And good enough is actually good. Now imagine if you approached every meal the way perfectionism approaches everything. You'd spend hours researching the optimal recipe, shopping for the absolute best ingredients, measuring everything precisely, adjusting and tasting and adjusting again, plating it like artwork. And by the time you were done, you'd be exhausted. You'd have spent 3 hours creating a meal that takes 15 minutes to eat. And the next day, you'd have to do it all over again, because you still need to eat. And eating requires meals. And if every meal must be perfect, you'd have no energy left for anything else in life. That's what perfectionism does. It makes everything take longer, cost more, require more energy than it's actually worth. Because most things in life, they don't need to be perfect. They just need to be adequate, good enough to serve their purpose, good enough to work, good enough to count. And when you can accept good enough, you free up enormous amounts of time and energy for the things that actually matter, for the people you love, for the experiences you want to have, for rest, for joy, for living instead of endlessly perfecting. Think about nature again. Let's really look at it this time. A tree, any tree. Is it symmetrical? Rarely. Are all its branches the same length? No. Are all its leaves perfectly shaped? Definitely not. Does it grow in a perfect straight line? Almost never. Is it flawed? By perfectionist standards? Absolutely. It has knots and scars and bent branches and missing bark. It grows around obstacles. It compensates for damage. It's entirely beautifully imperfect. And yet, it's a magnificent tree. It provides shade, produces oxygen, offers shelter to birds, bears fruit or flowers, or simply stands as a testament to life's persistence. Its imperfection doesn't diminish its value. Its flaws don't make it a failure. It's exactly what it needs to be, good enough to be a tree, which means perfect in its imperfection. Or think about art, real art, not the kind you see in museums behind velvet ropes, but the kind people actually make. A child's drawing, an amateur's painting, a friend's handmade pottery. Are they perfect? No. Are they technically flawless? Rarely. But are they valuable? Are they meaningful? Do they carry something of the person who made them? Do they bring joy or comfort or beauty into the world? Yes. Yes, they do. Their imperfection doesn't diminish them. It humanizes them. It makes them real. It allows them to connect with other humans who are also imperfect. Perfect art is impressive, but imperfect art is relatable, touchable, real. So why do you believe you must be perfect when nothing else in nature or art or life is? Why do you hold yourself to a standard that literally nothing achieves? Because perfectionism has convinced you that you're different, that while everything else can be beautifully imperfect, you must be impossibly perfect. But that's not truth. That's the wound talking. That's the old programming running. That's the fear pretending to be fact. What if you could do things adequately instead of perfectly? What if you could send an email that's clear enough without laboring over every word? What if you could have a conversation that's pleasant enough without rehearsing everything you might say? What if you could complete a project that's good enough to serve its purpose without endlessly revising? What if you could show up as yourself, flawed and human, and trying your best, and have that be enough? I can hear the voice of perfectionism objecting. But if I accept good enough, I'll become mediocre. I'll stop trying. I'll lose my edge. I'll become lazy and careless and ordinary. But that's fear talking. That's the false binary again. As if the only thing standing between you and total collapse is perfectionism. As if without impossible standards, you'd just give up. But that's not true, because you're not naturally lazy. You're not naturally careless. If you were, you wouldn't have developed perfectionism in the first place. The truth is, you care deeply about doing good work, about treating people well, about making a contribution, about being responsible. That care is intrinsic to who you are. It doesn't require perfectionism to maintain it. If anything, perfectionism has been masking your natural care, making you so anxious about being perfect that you can't actually focus on what matters, can't enjoy the process, can't celebrate progress, can't recognize when something is genuinely good enough. Without perfectionism, you wouldn't become careless. You'd become more effective, because you'd be able to distinguish between things that genuinely need excellence and things that just need adequacy. You'd be able to allocate your energy wisely instead of giving everything the same impossible standard. You'd be able to finish things instead of endlessly refining them. You'd be able to enjoy the process instead of just grinding through it. You'd be able to celebrate achievements instead of immediately moving to the next thing that needs to be perfect. Think about where in your life good enough would actually be good enough. Where perfectionism is costing more than it's worth. Maybe it's housework. Does your home need to be spotless, or does it need to be clean enough to be healthy and comfortable? Maybe it's appearance. Do you need to look like you stepped out of a magazine, or do you need to look presentable and feel comfortable? Maybe it's work emails. Do they need to be literary masterpieces, or do they need to communicate information clearly? Maybe it's social interactions. Do you need to be fascinating and impressive, or do you need to be kind and genuine? When you can let good enough be good in those areas, you free up energy for the things that truly matter, for the projects that genuinely deserve excellence, for the relationships that need your full presence, for the rest your body desperately needs, for the joy your soul is longing for. Good enough isn't giving up. It's choosing wisely. It's recognizing that not everything deserves the same level of investment. It's being strategic instead of indiscriminate with your perfectionism. And here's something else. Sometimes, often, good enough produces better results than perfection seeking. Because perfectionism creates paralysis. You don't start because you're afraid you can't do it perfectly. Or you start but never finish because it's not perfect yet. Or you finish but never share because it's not good enough. And so, all that potential, all that work, all that value, it never enters the world. It dies in the perfectionist's endless revision. But when you can accept good enough, you actually create, you actually finish, you actually share. And that imperfect thing you put into the world, it has impact. It helps someone. It contributes something. It exists. Whereas the perfect thing you never finished, it helps no one. It contributes nothing. It doesn't exist except as a source of shame about one more thing you couldn't get quite right. Done is better than perfect. Good enough in the world is better than perfect in your head. Adequate and complete is better than excellent and perpetually unfinished. This isn't lowering standards. This is understanding that the standard of completion, of actually doing the thing, of putting it out there, even when it's imperfect, that standard is higher than the standard of perfection that never allows anything to be finished. So what would change if you accepted good enough? What would you finish that you've been endlessly perfecting? What would you start that you've been afraid to begin? What would you share that you've been hiding? What would you enjoy that you've been critiquing? What would you experience that you've been monitoring? Who would you be if you weren't constantly trying to be perfect? Maybe you'd be free. Free to try things without the pressure of having to excel immediately. Free to make mistakes without it meaning you're a failure. Free to be average at things that don't really matter. Free to save your excellence for the things that truly do. Free to enjoy the process instead of just grinding toward an impossible outcome. Free to be human, messy, and learning and growing and imperfect and absolutely, completely, wonderfully enough. Good enough is not the enemy of excellence. Perfectionism is. Because perfectionism makes excellence impossible by making it never adequate. You can always be better, always do more, always improve further. And so, you never arrive, never celebrate, never rest in the satisfaction of having done something well. Good enough allows you to complete things, to feel satisfied, to celebrate progress, to rest. And from that rest, from that satisfaction, you have energy for genuine excellence in the areas that truly matter. So tonight, as you lie here, can you practice accepting good enough? Can you accept that your relaxation doesn't have to be perfect? That your breathing doesn't have to be controlled just right? That your position doesn't have to be optimal? That this experience doesn't have to be life-changing or profound, or anything more than adequate? Good enough to bring you some peace. Good enough to help you rest. Good enough to be worthwhile. That's all it needs to be. And that is more than enough. You're learning something profound. Something that will change everything if you let it. The lesson that adequate is acceptable. That good enough is genuinely good. That you don't have to be perfect to be valuable, to be worthy, to deserve rest and love and peace. You just have to be here, present, trying your best, which you always have been, which means you've always been enough. Even when you couldn't see it, even when perfectionism told you otherwise, you've always been exactly enough. Rest in that truth now. Let it sink deeper than words, deeper than thoughts, into the quiet place where you know things without having to prove them. You are enough. You have always been enough. And good enough is not just acceptable. It's beautiful. It's human. It's real. And it's exactly what you need to be. You've come so far. Can you feel it? The shift in your body, the quiet in your mind, the softening in your heart. You're not the same person who started listening to this. Something has loosened. Something has opened. Something that was held tight for so long. It's beginning to release. And what I want to offer you now, what you've been waiting your whole life to receive, is permission. Explicit, unconditional, complete permission. Permission to be human. Permission to be imperfect. Permission to be exactly what you are, instead of endlessly striving to be what you think you should be. And I want you to really hear this. Really take it in. Because this permission, it changes everything. You have permission to make mistakes. Not just small, inconsequential mistakes, but real ones. Meaningful ones. Mistakes that have impact. Mistakes that affect other people. Mistakes that you can't take back. You have permission to get things wrong, to misjudge situations, to say the wrong thing, to choose poorly, to fail at things you tried hard at, to disappoint people despite your best efforts, to be wrong even when you were certain you were right. You have permission to be imperfect in ways that matter, in ways that are visible, in ways that can't be hidden or explained away or immediately corrected, because mistakes are not evidence of inadequacy. They're evidence of living, of trying, of being human. Every person you admire has made countless mistakes. Every person you consider successful has failed repeatedly. Every person you think has it all together has moments of being completely wrong. The difference isn't that they don't make mistakes. It's that they've given themselves permission to make them. They've accepted that mistakes are part of growth, part of learning, part of being alive. And that acceptance, that permission, it's what allows them to keep trying, keep creating, keep showing up, because they're not paralyzed by the fear of imperfection. You have permission to not know things, to be confused, to be uncertain, to need help, to ask questions that might seem obvious to others, to admit you don't understand, to say, I don't know, without shame. You're not supposed to know everything. You're not supposed to have it all figured out. Nobody does. The people who seem most confident, they're just better at accepting their uncertainty, better at being okay with not knowing, better at asking for help without seeing it as weakness. Perfectionism has convinced you that not knowing is shameful, that uncertainty is inadequate, that needing help is failure. But that's backwards. Not knowing is the beginning of learning. Uncertainty is the space where growth happens. Asking for help is how we connect with others and allow them to contribute to our lives. When you give yourself permission to not know, you open yourself to discovering. When you accept uncertainty, you become curious instead of anxious. When you ask for help, you build community instead of isolation. You have permission to change your mind, to realize you were wrong about something you defended, to grow beyond beliefs you once held, to become different than you were, to want different things than you used to want, to value different things than you were taught to value. You're not locked into who you've been. You're not required to remain consistent with every position you've ever taken. You're allowed to evolve, to learn, to see things differently, to become someone new while still being yourself. Perfectionism demands consistency. It says you should have known better from the beginning. That changing your mind means you were wrong before. That evolution is admission of previous failure. But that's not how growth works. Growth requires changing, becoming, evolving. The person you were 5 years ago, they were doing their best with what they knew. And you today, you're doing your best with what you know now. Both versions are valid. Both are you. And the you of 5 years from now, they'll be different too. That's not failure. That's life. That's learning. That's the beautiful, messy process of becoming more fully yourself. You have permission to have needs. Physical needs, emotional needs, social needs, spiritual needs, needs for rest and comfort and pleasure and connection and meaning and beauty. You're not supposed to be self-sufficient. You're not supposed to need nothing. You're human, and humans have needs. Acknowledging them isn't weakness, it's honesty. Meeting them isn't indulgence, it's self-care. Asking others to help meet them isn't burden, it's relationship. Perfectionism says needing things makes you inadequate, that self-sufficiency is the goal, that asking for what you need is imposing on others. But that's isolation, pretending to be virtue. Humans are interdependent by design. We're meant to need each other, meant to give and receive, meant to contribute to each other's well-being. When you acknowledge your needs and allow others to help meet them, you're not being weak. You're being real. You're being human. You're allowing connection to happen. You have permission to rest, to stop, to do nothing, to be unproductive, to lie down in the middle of the day just because you're tired, to take breaks without having earned them. To sleep without first completing everything on your list. To say no to commitments because you need time to do nothing. You don't have to earn rest through productivity. Rest is not a reward for perfect performance. Rest is a basic human need, like food, like water, like air. You need it to survive, to function, to be well, and you're allowed to take it anytime, for any reason, simply because you need it. Perfectionism has made rest conditional, has made it something you must deserve, has made you believe that stopping before everything is perfect is giving up. But your body doesn't care about your to-do list. Your nervous system doesn't wait for perfect performance before it needs to recover. Your mind doesn't ask permission before it gets tired. You need rest, regardless of what you've accomplished. You deserve rest simply because you're alive. And giving yourself permission to rest, that's not lazy. That's wise. That's honoring what you actually need instead of what perfectionism says you should be able to handle. You have permission to set boundaries, to say no, to disappoint people, to prioritize yourself, to choose what's good for you even when others want something different, to protect your time and energy and peace, to not be everything to everyone, to be selective about where you invest yourself. You're not responsible for everyone's happiness. You're not required to say yes to every request. You're not obligated to sacrifice yourself to meet others' expectations. You're allowed to have limits, to honor them, to communicate them clearly, to maintain them firmly even when others push back. Perfectionism says you should be able to do it all, should be able to meet everyone's needs, while also meeting impossible standards in every area of life, should be able to say yes without cost to yourself. But that's not sustainable. That's not healthy. That's the path to exhaustion and resentment and burnout. Boundaries aren't selfish. They're necessary. They're how you protect what matters most. They're how you ensure you have enough of yourself left to actually be present for the things and people you choose to prioritize. You have permission to be ordinary, to be average, to be unremarkable, to blend in, to not stand out, to be just one of many instead of exceptional, to have a regular job, a regular life, regular achievements, to not be special or unique or extraordinary, to just be a person among people, living a human life, contributing what you can, doing your best, but not needing to be the best, not needing to be impressive, not needing to be anything more than yourself, average, ordinary, beautifully mundane yourself. Because here's the truth, perfectionism doesn't want you to know. Most of life is ordinary. Most moments are unremarkable. Most days are just days. And that's not tragic. That's not failing. That's living. That's the vast majority of what existence actually is. And when you can accept the ordinary, when you can stop demanding that every moment be extraordinary, you find peace. You find contentment. You find the ability to actually enjoy the simple, regular, unglamorous moments that make up most of human experience. You have permission to feel what you feel. Sadness without trying to fix it. Anger without apologizing for it. Fear without hiding it. Joy without moderating it. Confusion without clarifying it immediately. Grief without moving through it on a timeline. All of it. The messy, complicated, contradictory soup of human emotion. You're allowed to feel what you feel when you feel it, without judgment, without rush, without making it neater, or more acceptable, or more understandable than it actually is. Perfectionism wants emotions to be controlled, appropriate, proportional, quickly resolved. But emotions don't work that way. They arise when they arise. They last as long as they last. They're messy and irrational and sometimes overwhelming. And that's okay. That's human. Fighting them, trying to perfect them, trying to have only acceptable emotions at acceptable times, in acceptable measures, that's exhausting. Permission to feel means letting yourself be affected, letting things matter, letting your heart respond to life honestly instead of controlledly. You have permission to be seen in your struggle, to not have it all together, to let people witness you being imperfect, to ask for support, to admit when things are hard, to stop pretending everything is fine when it's not, to be vulnerable, to be real, to drop the mask and show people who you actually are, including the messy, struggling, imperfect parts. You don't have to be impressive all the time. You don't have to appear effortlessly capable. You're allowed to be human in front of other humans, to struggle visibly, to need help openly, to be imperfect publicly. Because when you give yourself permission to be seen in your imperfection, that's when real connection becomes possible. That's when people can actually know you. That's when intimacy happens. That's when you discover that being real is more valuable than being perfect. That being known is more important than being admired. That connection requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires permission to be imperfect where others can see it. This permission I'm offering you, it's not coming from me, really. It's not something I can grant or withhold. This permission, it's already yours. It's always been yours. You were born with it. You came into this world with complete permission to be human, to be imperfect, to make mistakes and learn and grow and struggle and rest and feel and need and change. That permission is your birthright. But somewhere along the way, you forgot, or you were taught to deny it, or you were punished for claiming it. And so you've been living as if you need someone else's permission to be what you already are, human. But you don't need anyone's permission, not mine, not your parents, not your teachers or partners or friends or societies. You already have permission, built into your very existence, the permission to be exactly what you are, imperfect, human, enough. What you need is to give yourself permission to claim that permission, to remember it, to live from it, to stop waiting for some external authority to tell you it's okay to be human, and just be human, fully, unapologetically, imperfectly, freely. So I'm not giving you permission. I'm reminding you that you already have it, that you've always had it, that nothing you've done or failed to do has revoked it, that it's yours, now and always. The permission to make mistakes and not know and change and need and rest and set boundaries and be ordinary and feel and be seen and be imperfect and be human and be exactly enough. Do you feel that? The weight lifting, the possibility opening, the freedom beginning? This is what it feels like to remember you have permission, to claim your humanity, to stop trying to be perfect, and finally, just be. It's relief, it's peace, it's coming home to yourself after a long exile, and you deserve this. You deserve to live from this permission, to breathe this freedom, to rest in this acceptance, starting now, starting tonight, starting this very moment. You have permission to sleep, to rest, to let go, to be imperfect, to be human, to be exactly what you are, which is enough, always enough, perfectly imperfect, beautifully human, completely, fully, entirely enough. The night is deepening around you now, and you're deepening with it, moving into quieter waters, softer spaces. Your body is heavy with approaching sleep. Your mind is gentle, drifting like clouds. And your heart, that guarded heart that's been protecting itself behind walls of perfectionism for so long, it's beginning to open. Just a little, just enough. Because it senses something new is possible. Something it's been longing for without knowing how to ask. And what it's longing for, what you're longing for, is friendship. Not from someone else, from yourself. The friendship of yourself with yourself. The radical act of becoming your own ally instead of your own critic. Your own companion instead of your own judge. Let's learn how to do that together. Let's learn how to befriend this imperfect, beautiful, struggling, worthy person you are. Think about how you treat a friend when they're struggling, when they make a mistake, when they fail at something they tried hard at, when they're disappointed in themselves. Do you attack them? Do you list all their flaws? Do you tell them they're not good enough? Do you withdraw your affection until they meet your standards? Of course not. That would be cruel. That would destroy the friendship. Instead, you're kind. You're patient. You listen. You remind them of their strengths. You help them see the situation more clearly. You normalize their struggle. You tell them it's okay. That everyone makes mistakes. That one failure doesn't define them. That you still care about them. That you're there for them. That they're still worthy of love and friendship despite being imperfect. But when you're the one struggling, when you're the one who made the mistake, when you're the one who failed, do you treat yourself with that same kindness? Do you offer yourself that same patience and understanding and support? Or do you become your own worst enemy, your harshest critic, your most unforgiving judge? You probably know the answer. You've been treating yourself with a cruelty you would never direct at someone you care about. Speaking to yourself in ways you would never speak to a friend. Holding yourself to standards you would never impose on anyone else. And calling it motivation. Calling it high standards. Calling it pushing yourself to be better. But it's not. It's just cruelty. Self-directed cruelty that you've somehow convinced yourself is necessary. But what if it's not necessary? What if you could hold yourself accountable without being cruel? What if you could want to improve without hating who you currently are? What if you could acknowledge mistakes without condemning yourself as a mistake? What if you could be your own friend instead of your own enemy? What would that look like? What would that feel like? Let's explore it. Let's practice it. Right now. Tonight. In this quiet space where no one can judge you for being gentle with yourself. Start by listening to how you talk to yourself. That internal voice. The commentary that runs constantly in your head. What's its tone? What's its typical message? For most perfectionists, it's harsh, critical, focused on what's wrong, quick to point out flaws, slow to acknowledge strengths, always finding the gap between where you are and where you should be, always disappointed, always pushing, always unsatisfied. That voice, it probably sounds like someone from your past, a parent maybe, a teacher, a coach, someone whose criticism shaped you. And you've internalized that voice so completely that you think it's you, that you think it's truth. But it's not. It's just old programming, old wounds, old fears speaking in a familiar voice. What if you could change that voice? Not silence it completely. That's probably not possible. But change its tone, its message, its relationship with you. What if instead of a harsh critic, it could become a supportive coach? What if instead of pointing out every flaw, it could acknowledge your efforts? What if instead of demanding perfection, it could encourage growth? What if that voice could become a friend? Try it now. Think of something you're disappointed in yourself about. Some way you fell short recently. Some mistake you made. Some standard you didn't meet. Now notice what your internal voice says about that. Notice the tone, the judgment, the harshness. Just notice it. Don't fight it. Don't try to change it yet. Just hear it clearly. Hear how unkind it is, how unforgiving, how unlike the way you'd speak to someone you cared about. Now, gently, try something different. Try speaking to yourself about that same situation the way you'd speak to a good friend. Not dismissing the mistake, not pretending it didn't happen, but holding it with compassion instead of condemnation. What would you say to a friend? Maybe something like, "Yeah, that didn't go the way you wanted. That's disappointing. But it's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. This doesn't mean you're inadequate. It just means you're human. You can learn from this. You can try again. You're still worthy. I'm still here. We'll figure this out together." Feel the difference? Feel how much gentler that is. How much more supportive. How much more kind. That's the voice of a friend. That's the voice of someone who wants the best for you without requiring you to be perfect to deserve their care. That's the voice you could be speaking to yourself with. Not someday. Not once you've earned it through better performance. Now. Today. In this moment. Simply because you deserve to be spoken to with kindness. By everyone. Including yourself. Especially yourself. Befriending yourself means talking to yourself like a friend. But it also means treating yourself like a friend. Think about what you do for friends. You make time for them. You prioritize their needs sometimes. You celebrate their wins. You support them through losses. You accept them as they are. You don't require them to earn your friendship through perfect behavior. You just care about them. You want good things for them. You enjoy their company. You're there for them. When was the last time you treated yourself that way? When did you last make time just for you? Not to be productive, but just to be. When did you last prioritize your own needs without guilt? When did you last celebrate something you accomplished instead of immediately moving to the next thing? When did you last accept yourself as you are instead of as you should be? When did you last enjoy your own company instead of using solitude to attack yourself with criticism? Befriending yourself means doing these things, making time for yourself, not just for productivity, but for pleasure, for rest, for whatever you need. It means prioritizing your needs sometimes, not always, not selfishly, but recognizing that your needs matter as much as anyone else's. It means celebrating your wins, actually pausing to acknowledge when you did something well, when you tried hard, when you showed up despite difficulty, not dismissing it because it wasn't perfect, but actually celebrating the good. It means being there for yourself in hard times, not abandoning yourself when things get difficult, not attacking yourself when you struggle, but staying present, staying kind, staying supportive, the way you would for a friend, saying, "This is hard. I know this is hard, but we'll get through it. You're not alone. I'm here with you." being the steady presence for yourself that you've always needed someone else to be. It means accepting yourself, not the perfected future version, not the version you're working toward, but the current version, the one who's flawed and struggling and trying and failing and trying again, the one who has bad days and makes mistakes and doesn't always know what they're doing. This version, right now, accepting this person, not because they're perfect, but because they're you. And you deserve your own acceptance just as much as anyone else does. And it means being honest with yourself without being cruel. Friends tell each other the truth, but they do it kindly. They do it with care. So yes, you can acknowledge when you need to change something, when you need to grow, when you need to do better. But you can do it without the cruelty, without the condemnation, without making it mean you're fundamentally inadequate. You can say, I need to work on this, without saying, I'm worthless for not already being good at it. You can want to improve without hating who you currently are. Think about what changes if you become your own friend. If you treat yourself with the same kindness you offer others, you stop being so lonely because you have yourself, always, constantly. You're never truly alone if you've befriended yourself. You stop being so fragile because your worth doesn't depend entirely on external validation. You have your own support, your own acceptance, your own friendship. You stop being so exhausted because you're not constantly at war with yourself. You're not using all your energy fighting and criticizing and demanding perfection from yourself. You can relax. You can rest. You can simply be. This doesn't mean you stop growing. It doesn't mean you stop trying. It doesn't mean you become complacent or settle for mediocrity. It means you grow from a foundation of self-acceptance rather than self-hatred. It means you try because you want to become more fully yourself, not because you're trying to escape being yourself. It means you aim for excellence from a place of caring for yourself rather than contempt for yourself. And that changes everything. Because growth that comes from self-acceptance is sustainable. Growth that comes from self-hatred eventually burns you out. So how do you actually befriend yourself? You practice daily, moment by moment. You notice when the harsh voice speaks, and you consciously choose to respond differently. You catch yourself being cruel, and you gently redirect to kindness. You treat yourself like you treat people you care about. You speak kindly. You give yourself grace. You celebrate wins. You support through struggles. You accept imperfection. You prioritize your needs. You enjoy your own company. You become the friend to yourself that you've always wanted someone else to be. And you do it imperfectly. Because of course you do. You're not going to suddenly become perfectly self-compassionate. You're going to forget. You're going to fall back into old patterns of self-criticism. You're going to catch yourself being harsh and realize you've been doing it for hours without noticing. And that's okay. That's expected. That's part of being human. When it happens, you don't attack yourself for attacking yourself. You just notice, redirect, try again, the way a friend would encourage you. Hey, you're being harsh with yourself again. Let's try being a little gentler. It's okay. We're learning. We'll get there. This is perhaps the most important relationship of your life. The relationship with yourself. Because you're the only person who will be with you for your entire existence. From birth to death. Every moment. Every experience. Every triumph and tragedy. you're there. So shouldn't that relationship be kind? Shouldn't it be supportive? Shouldn't it be friendly rather than hostile? You deserve that. You deserve to have yourself as an ally, as a companion, as a friend, not because you've earned it through perfect behavior, but because you're a human being who deserves kindness from everyone, including yourself. Tonight, as sleep approaches, I want you to practice this, to speak to yourself with friendship, to treat yourself with gentleness, to be the kind, patient, accepting presence for yourself that you've always been for others. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to try. Just be a little kinder than you were yesterday, a little more accepting, a little more friendly. And tomorrow, try again. And the next day, and the day after that, until slowly, gradually, the voice of criticism becomes the voice of compassion, until the harsh judge becomes the supportive friend, until you're no longer your own enemy, but your own beloved companion. You're not alone, not anymore, because you have you, and you're learning to be a good friend to yourself, the best friend, the steady one, the kind one, the one who never leaves, who always cares, who accepts you exactly as you are, imperfect, human, worthy, enough. Rest now, held by your own kindness, befriended by yourself, no longer fighting, no longer striving, just being with yourself, for yourself, as a friend, gentle and accepting and kind. You're safe here, in your own embrace, in your own care, in your own loving friendship, with the beautiful, imperfect person you are. Sleep now. Friend, sleep. You're at the threshold now, the very edge of sleep. Your body has already crossed over. It's resting deeply, completely surrendered to gravity, to stillness, to peace. And your mind, it's following slowly, reluctantly, still holding just the thinnest thread of consciousness. But even that thread is loosening. Even that last bit of awareness is ready to let go. And there's just one thing left, one final barrier between you and complete rest. One last belief that perfectionism wants you to hold on to. The belief that you must earn rest, that you must deserve sleep, that you must do enough, be enough, achieve enough before you're allowed to stop. And tonight, right now, in these last moments before sleep takes you completely, we're going to release that belief. We're going to discover that rest is not a reward. It's a right. And you don't have to earn it. You never did. Listen to your body for a moment. Really listen. It's tired, isn't it? Deeply, profoundly tired. Not just from today, but from years, maybe decades, of pushing, of striving, of never quite resting, because rest had to be earned, and you never quite earned it enough. Your muscles are tired from holding tension. Your nervous system is tired from constant vigilance. Your mind is tired from endless monitoring and critiquing. Your soul is tired from never being allowed to simply be. Everything in you is tired, exhausted, depleted, desperate for rest. And yet, even now, even lying here in the darkness with nothing left to do, there's probably a voice asking if you've done enough to deserve this. Have you completed everything on your list? Have you been productive enough today? Have you achieved enough? Have you been good enough? Have you earned the right to rest? That voice, it's been the gatekeeper between you and rest for so long. It's been deciding whether you deserve to stop, whether you've worked hard enough, whether you've been perfect enough. And most of the time, its answer has been no. Not yet, not quite, just a little more. Then you can rest. But that then never comes. There's always one more thing, one more task, one more way you could have been better. And so rest remains always just out of reach, always conditional, always earned, never simply given. But your body doesn't care about that voice. Your body doesn't care about your to-do list. It doesn't care about your achievements or your failures or whether you were productive enough today. Your body has needs that exist independent of performance. It needs rest. It needs sleep. It needs recovery. Not because you earned it, but because you're alive. Because you're a biological organism that requires rest to function, to survive, to be well. Rest is not optional. It's not a luxury. It's not a reward for good behavior. It's a basic need, like food, like water, like breath. And you're allowed to meet your basic needs without first proving you deserve them. Think about it. Do you earn the right to breathe? Do you have to achieve something before you're allowed to drink water when you're thirsty? Do you need to be productive before you're permitted to eat when you're hungry? Of course not. Those are basic needs. You meet them simply because you have them. Simply because you're alive and your body requires them. And rest, sleep, they're the same. They're basic needs. Your body needs them, whether you've been perfect today or not, whether you've completed everything or not, whether you've earned them in the economy of perfectionism or not. But perfectionism has convinced you otherwise. It's taught you that rest is a reward, something you receive only after sufficient productivity, only after meeting certain standards, only after being good enough. And so, you've been rationing your rest, withholding it from yourself, making yourself jump through hoops to earn what should be freely given. And in the process, you've become chronically exhausted, chronically depleted, chronically running on empty because you never quite do enough to deserve a full tank. This is not sustainable. This is not healthy. This is not even rational. You cannot function well without adequate rest. You cannot be productive when you're exhausted. You cannot achieve when you're depleted. You cannot be your best when you're running on empty. Perfectionism claims it's making you better by demanding you earn rest. But it's actually making you worse, making you less capable, less effective, less able to do the very things it says you must do to deserve rest. It's a trap, a cruel loop, where exhaustion prevents achievement, which prevents rest, which causes more exhaustion, which prevents more achievement. Round and round, never ending, never resting, never enough. The way out is simple, not easy, but simple. You stop making rest conditional. You stop believing you must earn it. You recognize it as a basic need, and you meet that need, not because you deserve it through perfect performance, but because you need it. Period. End of negotiation. Your body is tired. Therefore, you rest. That's it. That's the whole equation. Need plus meeting, need. No earning required. But I know what you're thinking. If I rest without earning it, I'll become lazy. I'll stop being productive. I'll lose my edge. I'll never accomplish anything again. That's the fear, isn't it? That without the threat of withholding rest, you'll just collapse, just give up, just sleep forever and never do anything again. But that's not how it works. That's not how humans work. Because you're not naturally lazy. You're not naturally unproductive. If you were, you wouldn't have developed perfectionism in the first place. The truth is, when you rest adequately, when you actually allow your body to recover, when you give yourself the sleep and restoration you need, you become more capable, more creative, more productive, more effective. Rest doesn't make you lazy. Exhaustion makes you ineffective. Rest makes you better at everything. Better at thinking, better at creating, better at problem solving, better at relating, better at working, better at living. The version of you that's well rested is infinitely more capable than the version of you that's chronically exhausted and trying to earn the right to rest. So what if you gave yourself unconditional permission to rest? What if you allowed yourself to sleep when you're tired, regardless of what you accomplished today? What if you took breaks when you needed them instead of when you earned them? What if you listened to your body's signals and responded to them without first consulting the checklist of whether you've done enough? What would happen? Here's what would actually happen. You'd rest, really rest, deep, restorative, healing rest. And from that rest, you'd have energy. Real energy. Not the jittery, adrenaline-fueled, running on empty energy that comes from pushing through exhaustion, but genuine, sustainable energy. And from that energy, you'd be able to do more, better, with more creativity and effectiveness and joy. You'd accomplish more from a place of rest than you ever did from a place of exhaustion. But even if that weren't true, even if resting adequately didn't make you more productive, you'd still deserve rest. Because rest is not about productivity. Rest is about being human, about having a body with needs, about honoring those needs, about treating yourself with basic decency. You deserve rest for the same reason you deserve food and water and breath. Because you're alive. Because you exist. Because you matter. Not because of what you do, but because of what you are. A living being with needs that deserve to be met. Without conditions, without earning, without proving. Just met. Tonight, you don't have to earn this sleep. You don't have to have been productive enough, or good enough, or perfect enough. You just have to be tired enough. And you are. You're so tired. You've been tired for so long. And tonight, finally, you have permission to rest without earning it, to sleep without deserving it, to stop without having done enough. Because enough is not the standard. Tired is the standard, and you're tired. So you rest. It's that simple. It's always been that simple. You've just been making it complicated by adding conditions that were never necessary. Feel your body now. Feel how heavy it is, how completely it's surrendered to rest. It doesn't care if you finished your to-do list. It doesn't care if you were perfect today. It's resting because it needs to rest. And that's wisdom. That's your body teaching you what your mind has forgotten. That rest is not earned. It's needed. And needs are met simply because they exist, not because they've been justified or proven worthy, just because they exist. So let yourself rest, completely, unconditionally, without reservation, without guilt, without the nagging voice asking if you've done enough. You don't have to do enough. You just have to be tired. And you are. So you rest, you sleep, you let go completely, not because you earned it, but because you need it. And that is more than enough reason. Your body is already asleep. Your mind is almost there. Just this last little bit of holding on. Just this last thin thread of consciousness that thinks it needs to stay vigilant, that thinks rest must be monitored and controlled and earned. But you can let that go now. You can release it. You can trust that sleep will come, that rest will happen, that you don't have to manage it or perfect it or earn it. You just have to allow it. Breathe deeply, slowly, feeling your chest rise and fall, rise and fall. Each breath carrying you deeper into rest, deeper into the permission to simply be tired and respond to that tiredness with rest. No earning required, no conditions attached, just need and meeting need, just exhaustion and rest, just your beautiful body knowing what it needs, and finally, being allowed to take it. You don't have to stay awake anymore. You don't have to keep vigilant. You don't have to monitor whether you've done enough. You've done enough by being alive today, by making it through, by arriving here, by being willing to release perfection and embrace rest. That's enough. You're enough. And you deserve this rest. Not because you earned it, but because you need it. And need is enough. You are enough. Rest now. Sleep now. Without earning it. Without deserving it. Just sleeping. Because you're tired. And tired bodies rest. It's that simple. It's always been that simple. Let go now. Completely. The last thread releasing. Consciousness fading. Sleep arriving. Not because you earned it, but because you need it. And that's all the reason you ever needed. Rest now. Sleep now. Deeply. Completely. Without conditions. Without earning. Just resting. Just sleeping. Just being. Held by the simple truth that you deserve rest. Always. Simply for being alive. Sleep now. My tired friend. Sleep. You've earned nothing. And you deserve everything. Including this peaceful, unconditional, unearned, perfect rest. Sleep. Breathe, just breathe. There's nothing left to do now. Nothing left to figure out. Nothing left to perfect. Just this. Just breathing. Just being. Just letting go. You've traveled so far tonight, from the exhaustion of perfectionism, through understanding, through grief, through permission, through befriending yourself. And now, finally, you're here, at the place of complete rest, complete release, complete peace. Sleep is here, waiting, patient, gentle. It doesn't require anything from you, doesn't demand perfection, doesn't ask if you've done enough. It simply welcomes you, exactly as you are, tired, imperfect, human, beautiful. Feel yourself sinking, deeper, deeper, like settling into warm water, like being held by clouds, like dissolving into softness. There's no resistance left, no holding on, no trying, just surrendering, just releasing, just being carried into rest. Your body knows what to do. It's done this thousands of times. Letting go. Releasing into sleep, into healing, into restoration. You don't have to help. You don't have to do it right. Your body knows. And it's already there. Already sleeping. Already resting. Already home. 10. Feeling yourself drift. 9. So heavy. So peaceful. 8. Letting go of today. 7. Letting go of trying. 6. Letting go of perfection. 5. Just floating now. 4. Just dissolving. 3. Almost gone. 2. Barely here. 1. Sleep now. Sleep. You're imperfect. And you're loved. You're flawed. And you're worthy. You're unfinished. And you're complete. You're human. And that's perfect. Exactly perfect. In your beautiful imperfection. Sleep doesn't care that you're not perfect. Sleep comes for everyone. The flawed and the tired and the struggling and the human. Sleep comes for you, not because you earned it, but because you need it. And you're alive. And that's enough. Always enough. Rest now. Deeply. completely, peacefully, knowing you're exactly what you need to be, imperfect and worthy, flawed and lovable, tired and deserving of rest, human and perfect in your humanity. The night holds you, the darkness protects you, the quiet soothes you, and sleep, gentle sleep, wraps around you like the warmest embrace, welcoming you home, to rest, to peace, to yourself. You did nothing wrong today. You don't have to do anything right tomorrow. You just have to be, and sleep, and rest, and let your body heal, let your mind quiet, let your soul restore, in the perfect imperfection of simply being alive. Breathe slower now, slower, barely breathing, barely here, mostly gone, into sleep, into dreams, into the deep rest your body has been longing for. You're safe here, you're held here, you're loved here, exactly as you are. Nothing to perfect, nothing to achieve, nothing to earn, nothing to become. Just this, just rest, just sleep, just peace, settling over you like snow, like silence, like grace. Let go, let go, let go of everything, every thought, every worry, every standard, every should. Let it all dissolve into this moment, into this breath, into this beautiful, imperfect, perfect rest. You are enough, tired and imperfect and struggling and trying. You are enough. You have always been enough. And sleep comes now, not as a reward, but as a gift. Not because you earned it, but because you're alive. And alive means worthy, means deserving, means enough. Sleep now, beautiful one. Sleep, imperfect and perfect, flawed and whole, human and divine, exactly as you are, exactly as you need to be. Sleep comes for you, sleep holds you, sleep loves you, just as you are, deeper, softer, quieter, until there's nothing left. Just sleep, just peace, just you, perfect in your imperfection, complete in your incompletion, finished in your unfinished becoming, exactly, exactly, enough. Good night, sweet soul. Good night. Rest in your humanity. Rest in your imperfection. Rest in the truth that you never had to be perfect. You only had to be, and you are. You beautifully are. And that's everything. Sleep, sleep, sleep.